Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lehigh Student Broadcasting Club podcast. I'm your host, Nick Deligtisch. I'm joined by Jackson Kramp and Jake Welch. Today, we're going to be talking about the 2024 NFL season. We have already seen two games because, we're recording this on Saturday. So the Thursday night game between the Chiefs and the Ravens has already happened, and the Friday night game between the Packers and the Eagles has already happened. There was a pretty notable injury at the end, which we'll go over later. But the way this is going to work is we're going to go through all the divisions, and then we're going to talk about the playoffs and just give our predictions. So we're going to start in the AFC with the AFC East. And Jackson, I'll kick it to you. What are your predictions? Who's like a sleeper, who is a really good team and whatnot?
So I think this is going to be a pretty even division between three teams. So I think the Dolphins take this at 10-7, but I think the Bills also go 10-7. I think the Bills losing Diggs kind of puts them down a little bit, and I think the Dolphins kept the pieces and improved enough that I think they finally take this division. Then I got the Jets at 8-9 and Patriots at a measly 4-13. I mean, I think the Jets theoretically could do better, but I mean, I'm never going to predict the Jets to do well just because they're the Jets.
Mm.
Um, I think the kind of like sleeper that isn't, I mean, it's not a sleeper. It would just be kind of a bolder prediction would be that like this could be the year Tua really plays out of his mind. I've seen a lot of like Tua MVP talks. I'm not sure I believe that, but like, I could see it happening. And then, kind of on the flip side, I could see the Bills just having a really bad year. If Josh Allen gets hurt even for a little bit, that Bills team is going to be a mess.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with you with like Tua. I feel like he's pretty underrated, which is crazy to
Yeah.
say, like, especially after that big contract. Jake, I'll kick it to you next, and then I'll wrap up this division.
Yeah. I have a lot of friends who are Jets fans, and they seem to think that they're going to go 17-0 this year. I don't know if that's true, but I think they're probably going to win the division at 11-6 this year. I have them as the 3 seed in the AFC. I think the Dolphins also could be very good. They have a lot of weapons, and Tua is a very good player. So I have them at 10-7. But the Bills really don't impress me. Josh Allen's a really good quarterback, but outside of that, there's not a whole lot of players on that team that I think are really going to be able to take them to the next level. So I have them missing the playoffs this year, actually, 9-8. And then obviously Patriots are not a very good football team. I had them at 14, at 4-13 this year. So
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all in pretty much agreement for a lot of these. I'm a tiny bit different. I think the Bills are still going to win the division. I think that they've been dominating this division ever since Tom Brady left New England. I do have them at 10-7, though. I have them regressing. I mean, look, this was a tough offseason for Buffalo. They were in cap hell. They lost a lot of talent. Like, look, you got to mention that. It's very
yeah,
prevalent for this team. But, we've seen teams get carried by elite quarterback play. And we also have to acknowledge that they have a top five, maybe top three quarterback in the NFL. Now, Josh Allen is not Patrick Mahomes, but he's still an elite quarterback. And that alone in this era of the NFL is going to help you win games. I think that they're going to be worse than they were before, but I still think they're a playoff team. And I think they win this division strictly because I can't really trust the Dolphins, especially on the road. The Dolphins on the road are not a good team. At home, they're an elite team. They're a team that desperately needs to play playoff games at home. You saw it last year in that freezing cold game against the Chiefs. They couldn't do anything. You saw when they played at home, they were beating teams like the Cowboys. Like they were a lethal team at home. I think that they're going to make the playoffs as a wild card, also at 10-7. I still trust the Bills more than the Dolphins to win this division. Now, regarding the Jets, as a Giants fan, I don't hate the Jets. I don't pick them to go 8-9 because of hatred. I pick it because I'm a reasonable sports fan. Are like, of course, if Aaron Rodgers were healthy last year, they would have done much better than 7-10. Yes, but you can't just say that. Like, that's not what happened. It's hypotheticals. Of course, Aaron Rodgers is back, but this man is 40. Like, he's 40 years old. He's very old, coming off a torn Achilles. You can't expect him to be prime Aaron Rodgers. They have a great defense as well, but I don't trust the Jets. I say 8-9. And then the Patriots, I have at 5-12. They're rebuilding. I think that Drake May is going to struggle in the beginning of, or no, he's not even starting. I think he's going to come in with like week 7 and struggle. It's hard as a rookie to be a quarterback in this league. But yeah, I have New England at 5-12. We're going to move over to the AFC North now, and I'm going to start this one off. I like Cincinnati. I think they're going to go 12-5 and win the division. I think they had a fluke year last year, and even with that, they almost made the playoffs. Like, it's honestly impressive that they had a winning season last year with all of their injuries, especially with Joe Burrow. Like, compare the Bengals and the Jets. The Jets, with their quarterback being out for the season, go 7-10, and they can't do anything on offense. The Bengals, they had a winning season, and they were in the playoff hunt until the second to last week. That was honestly an impressive run from the Bengals. And I think with Joe Burrow back and that team fully healthy, they're going to be lethal at 12-5. I'm not too worried about Jamar Chase's contract situation. Maybe he misses a game or two, but I think he'll be playing. I have the Ravens at 11-6. I think the Ravens last year, in my opinion, was their best chance. I think they're still a great team, of course. But, when teams have super big years like that, they tend to not back it up, like in a sense where they do it again. They can still be a good team, which I have them at 11-6, but I don't think they're going to be winning 13 or 14 games again, back-to-back years. I have them in the wild card, though. And then I have the Browns and the Steelers at 8-9. The Browns, I still don't trust Deshaun Watson. Like, I don't know. I haven't seen anything good out of him in Cleveland. Their defense is great, but it can only do so much. And regarding the Steelers, I personally am one of the biggest Steelers haters on the planet. I'm so tired of them sneaking their way into the playoffs as a bad team and just creating a horrible first round matchup to watch on television. I'm tired of it. I think that they're not that good. And I think they're finally going to go below 500 at 8-9. Yeah. So that's my predictions for this division. I'll kick it to you, Jackson, next too. I wonder who you're going to pick to win it.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really blame. I mean, I got the Ravens going 12-5, winning the division, Bengals 10-7. I hear you with the Ravens not backing up 13 game wins. They're not going to win 13 games this year. They're a worse football team than they were last year, but they have the second best quarterback in the NFL, and that wins you quite a few football games. Now the Bengals, on the other hand, have probably the third or fourth best quarterback in the NFL. And so I think, Bengals Ravens TV matchups are going to be some of the best the whole year. I have the Ravens a little bit better in this division purely because of the Bengals two wide receivers weirdness with Chase's contract and Higgins doing whatever Higgins is doing. I mean, I just think that those are like some kind of chemistry things that, like you said, maybe Chase misses a game or two. Well, okay, that's the difference between winning the division and not winning the division. Um, I have the Steelers 8-9. I saw Justin Fields is going to get the start week 1, which is going to be kind of hilarious because Wilson got hurt. I think the idea of those two battling for a quarterback job must be the funniest thing on the practice field. But I think they go 8-9, and I have the Browns 6-11. I don't like Deshaun Watson as a person or as a quarterback. Um, I think that I honestly think that Joe Flacco playing quarterback for them last year, he's not a better player than Deshaun Watson, but chemistry wise, it's so much better. And I think having Watson back is, just going to kind of mess up the vibes. So despite their elite defense, I think they go 6-11.
6 wins is pretty harsh. Like, I'm not too high on Cleveland, of course, but I think 6 is
Yeah.
a little low.
Yeah,
Let
I
you
agree.
wrap up this division.
Just to continue on the Cleveland thing, like I don't think they're that bad of a team. They're not a good team, obviously, but I saw them last in the division. I have them at 7 wins, which is not that much higher than Jackson. Uh, but Cleveland, like, there's not much there that you can be impressed by when you look at their roster top down. Deshaun Watson's like years ago, he was pretty good, but he hasn't shown anything good while he's been in Cleveland. So it's really hard to root for that team to win the division right now. The Ravens, despite losing on Thursday night, still a very good football team. There's a lot of weapons on that offense. There's a lot of things that Lamar Jackson can do to score, and I really trust them to win the division pretty easily here. Though this is a really strong division, the Bengals, is a team I'm not impressed by as much as most people are. I still have them with a winning record at 9-8, but I don't have them making the playoffs this year. They're a good football team, but there's not a whole lot that I love outside of, the receivers and obviously Joe Burrow. Um, and the Steelers, they're somehow going to find a way to go over 500 like they always do, 9-8. I don't have them making the playoffs though. I do think they finished probably below the Bengals, but I have them both at 9-8.
Yeah. I mean, in general, we were pretty in sync with these first two divisions. Moving to the AFC South, I'll start with you, Jake. Again, give me your thoughts on this division.
I think the Texans are a really, really good football team. They're very young and they have the opportunity here to really develop into a team that can be like dominant for years to come. And I think this year is going to start with their first year of dominance. I have them at 13-4, the number one seed in the AFC. I think there's really a lot on this team to like, and it's really hard to bet against them this year. And obviously years to come if they continue with a similar roster. After that, I have the Jaguars making the playoffs as a wild card. I really like Trevor Lawrence. I think he's a great quarterback. I think he's really going to start to develop here in this year and the next couple of years. He might become one of the most elite quarterbacks in the league in a couple of years here. So he's really something to look forward to watching. And then the last two teams aren't super impressive. It's the Colts and I have at 7-10, and the Titans at 4-13. There's not a whole lot to like on either roster. I think Michael Pittman's a pretty good player. I'm completely just forgot who the Colts quarterback is right now, so that's not a good show
Anthony
for them.
Richardson.
Yeah, there you go, Anthony Richardson. He's not just a great player either. So I don't think either of these teams are going to be very good. I don't even give them an outside chance of making the playoffs this year. And the Titans, I don't like that team. They're going to do very well.
Yeah, what are my thoughts on this division? I agree with you. I personally am I don't know like the proper English for this. I'm higher on Houston than like any other team. Like Houston, I'm like the highest on out of any team in the NFL. I think this team resembles like the Bengals back when Joe Burrow had his first year, like that little stretch. I think that they had an exceptional offseason. Their offseason is somehow underrated. Adding a guy like Stephon Diggs, a great pickup. Adding guys like Danielle Hunter, Joe Mixon, like, yes, they're on the older side, but that's what Houston needs. They were a very young team last year. They have a very young quarterback with, like that entire team didn't have much experience. To add like a lot of talent, that alone, and to add the experience, I think that was huge. And a lot of these moves were, not risky. I mean, Stephon Diggs is going to be a free agent after this year. Danielle Hunter, I think, is on a 2-year contract. Same thing with Joe Mixon. I think they signed him for 2 years. So if things don't work out, it's okay. I am so high on Houston. I have them as the 2 seed. I have them as 12-5. Jacksonville, I think they're going to go 9-8 again. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to improve, but I think the defense is going to like decrease a little. I have them sneaking in the playoffs though as the 7 seed at 9-8. Indianapolis, I have an 8-9. I think their season last year was a little, like they were playing above their heads. Gardner Minshew especially was playing above, the level that he typically plays at. I think Anthony Richardson is going to improve a lot off of the first couple games of his rookie year, but I think pretty much the rest of the team, except for like Michael Pittman, is gonna, regress after last year just because they all played above their heads. And then Tennessee, even though I have them at 7-10, I think they're kind of a sleeper. They had a sneaky good offseason. They got L'Jarius Sneed and nobody seemed to care. That's an elite corner. Like that was a good move. They got Tony Pollard, who is still a good running back, even though for some reason he couldn't score touchdowns last year. They made good moves. I'm forgetting other moves that they made, but they made a lot of good moves for that roster. So yeah, we'll kick it to you, Jackson, and then we'll go to the AFC West. We're in like pretty much we're agreeing on like all of these as I look at the sheet for Jackson.
Yeah. I mean, I have Houston a little bit lower than you two. I'm not as high on Houston for this season. I have them at 11-6 winning the division. that's not because I don't think they had a good offseason. It's not because I don't think they're talented. I just think, first of all, expectations matter. Last year, everyone was like, oh, Houston, they have a couple good rookies, but we'll check back on them in a couple years. But now, they're a top dog. I think expectations matter. I remember a few years ago, the Browns, and they traded for OBJ, and everyone was like, oh, look, we have this superstar second-year quarterback, a superstar vet wide receiver. They have a great defensive end. There are some similarities. Now, I don't think Houston's going to implode like Cleveland did that year, but I don't think they're going to be a 13-win team. So I have them at 11-6. Plus, they have to play a first place in the division schedule this year, which is, a difference from, I don't know what division schedule they were playing last year. Not a first seed. I have the Jags going 10-7. Like Jake, I really like Trevor Lawrence. And I think part of the reason why I only have Houston 11-6 is I think the Jaguars could take a game or two off of them. And I think those are going to be really fun matchups to watch between Lawrence and Stroud, just two really good young quarterbacks. And then I have the Colts at 6-11. I think Anthony Richardson obviously has a lot of potential, but I saw some stat. It was like he started like 20 games since he was like a senior in high school or something. Like,
yeah, it was less than that. It was like 12, dude. It
yeah,
was
like
crazy.
he's gonna need a full year of playing quarterback in the NFL to really see what he can do. I have him at 6-11. I agree with you, Nick. I actually like the Titans off season. But I think, with a guy like Will Levis, again, a guy who has some potential, I think he has some of the physical attributes. He's going to make a lot of mistakes, but I think they have enough individual talent that they get 6 wins. That stuff could change, though, based on how these quarterbacks play. Because all four of those quarterbacks, right, could dictate this division if one of them has like a really good breakout year.
Yeah, I mean, this is like the youngest quarterback division of all time. You got second year player in Will Levis, second year in CJ Stroud, fourth year in Dexter Lawrence and Trevor Lawrence, and second year in Anthony Richardson. Like, this is such a young quarterback division, but it's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's
Um,
definitely a division to watch in the coming years as
oh
these
yeah,
quarterbacks start to develop.
yeah. Imagine if all four of them become elite. Like, that would be cinema. But anyway, yeah. So we're gonna move to the AFC West. Jackson, we'll stick with you. Wow, you guys actually okay. I'll just let you guys talk. I'm seeing something that I kind of disagree with.
So I got the Chiefs at 11-6 winning the division. I could see them getting higher. Of course, they have the best quarterback in the NFL, might have the best coach. They have a lot of the best stuff. Um, they look they looked pretty good on Thursday night. I think there were some things that you might look at and say that's not amazing. Without Jerry Sneed, I don't think their secondary is as good as last year. But obviously, they still have Chris Jones on defense, and he's just like Chris Jones wins you a few games a year. I think we'll see about their receivers core. Obviously, Rasheed Rice has his legal cases going on. And then Xavier Worry and Marquise Brown, they're each highlight level players, but will either of them be consistent contributors? I think we'll just see. So I have an 11-6. I have the Chargers at 10-7. And listen, originally, I had the Chargers a lot lower. But as much as I dislike Jim Harbaugh, the man just wins. And I don't think his play style really suits the NFL anymore, but he wins. And so I have him going 10-7, sneaking into the playoffs. I think Justin Herbert's a great quarterback. And I just think what the Chargers really needed was just someone different to talk to them because they had so much talent, it just wasn't working. I have the Broncos going 7-10. I think that Bo Nix looked really good in preseason. I think he'll struggle when it's like really mattering and it's like late game scenarios. And I think the Broncos lose a couple close games. And then I have the Raiders at 5-12. I love Gardner Minshew, but I don't think they're winning that many games.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure we're all in agreement. I think everybody is in agreement that the Chiefs are going to win this division, except for Chargers fans, Raiders fans, and Broncos fans, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jake, I'll kick it to you, and then I'll wrap up the AFC.
I think even the Raiders and Broncos fans at this point might be recognizing that the Chiefs are probably winning the division. It's really hard to bet against them. I think they're almost by far the best team in this division. They're so good. I don't think Xavier Worthy's gonna be as good as he looked to be on Thursday night because he just got those 2 touchdowns off, and then other than that, I don't even know if he got a touch. So I still think they're the best team in the division, but I only have them at 10-7 this year, as the fourth seed in the AFC. And the Chargers actually have the same record, 10-7. I have them making the playoffs as the seventh seed. I really like Justin Herbert. I think having a new head coach in that room is going to be a game changer for the Chargers. And I think they're going to be able to make the playoffs because it is a pretty weak division outside of the Chiefs. So I think they have pretty free wins from the Raiders and the Broncos. Uh, so I really expect them to make the playoffs this year. And the Raiders and the Broncos, like I said before, are two teams that I don't really expect to do that well. Bo Nix, he played decent in preseason, but he's not a player you're expecting to break out as a top quarterback in his first year. And then Gardner Minshew is he's always been floating around the league, and he's someone that you just like can't rely on in these big moments. So I don't think either of these teams are going to do too well.
Mhm. I gotta say, I don't know why you guys are so high on the Chargers. I agree with you. I have the Chiefs as the division winners at 10-7. Why is the record so low, you might ask? I feel like Kansas City has realized that no matter what happens in the regular season, they're fine in the playoffs because they have Patrick Mahomes. I think they're gonna like not care in a sense, like it used to be in the NBA with load management, where you just like have to get in. They're gonna win their division easily every year. So like, who cares? Like they had Mahomes in a sense, where they had a bad regular season last year and they still just won every game and won the Super Bowl. But yeah, that's honestly the only reason I have them at 10-7. I think they're going to take it a little less or a little more relaxed. Moving on to the Chargers, I have in second, but at 7-10. First of all, I just want to say that the Chargers are one of the most cursed organizations in all sports. They, no matter what is going on, find a way to mess it up. The Chargers one year had the number one offense and the number one defense and went 8-8. This is the type of stuff that the Chargers do. I agree with you, Jackson, in a sense where Jim Harbaugh wins wherever he goes. But this is his first year back in the NFL in a while. I feel like there are going to be some growing pains, especially when Connor Stallions is not on your sideline. I like Justin Herbert, but it's so evident that the players around him can never support him. Brandon Staley was actually the worst coach I've ever seen. He made so many dumb decisions. And so I think their coach is a lot better, but he's a coach. It can only help you so much. And especially when they were in cap hell and they had to lose Keenan Allen, they had to lose Austin Eckler, they had to lose a lot of talent this offseason just to be in the salary cap. I have them at 7-10, though. I think they'll be better than last year. The Raiders, I have at 7-10 as well. I like Antonio Pierce. I just, you can't really do much when Gardner Minshew is your quarterback. They're trying to build a culture there, which I can see happening. But I just don't really trust a Gardner Minshew-led team. And when your other option is Aiden O'Connell, I don't know. Yeah, I think if they draft a quarterback, they could be a team on the rise next year. For the Broncos, I have them at 5-12. This is another team that has just been horrible ever since Peyton Manning left. Bo Nix, I think he's going to show some glimpses, but he's going to struggle as a rookie like most people do. I have them at 5-12. Moving on to the NFC East now, my favorite division. So I'm going to go first here. Look, I'm a diehard Giants fan, but I keep it real. Like, I unfortunately have the Eagles winning the division at 11-6. The thing about the NFC East is there hasn't been a division winner who's won it both years in a row for like 15 years or 20 years, something crazy like that. So I'm not picking Dallas. I wouldn't pick Dallas anyway. I have the Eagles at 11-6. I feel like the Eagles are overrated. I know I might be biased because I really despise them, but people just seem to forget how god awful they played to end last year. I certainly don't. They were getting destroyed by everybody. The Giants destroyed them. Like it was not good. And they lost Jason Kelsey, which is a huge loss. People really don't understand how big of a loss that is. Having your basically the leader of your offensive line and your offense in a sense, it takes a while to get used to, and people don't realize that. I have Dallas at 10-7. I think they're 1,000,000% due for regression. Any team that's starting Ezekiel Elliott as their running back in the big 2024, my God. I think Dallas is, talented enough where they'll still make the playoffs at 10-7. I have them as the 6th seed. I have the Eagles as the 3 seed. So I have them matching up in the first round, which would be a funny wild card game. Now, moving on to my Giants. I think if you look at the Giants last year, they went 6-11, right? They had like 2 or 3 games that they were a play away from winning. The Bills game, they had that 4th and goal to Darren Waller that didn't happen. And there was a hold, but it's whatever. They had the Jets game, which they completely blew. Should have won that game. That's another game. And then they had one more game, the Rams game, where they missed the game-winning field goal. Those are 3 wins where if they won those games, they would have been 9-8. Now, did they win them? No, they didn't. I'm not trying to validate last year. I'm just trying to put a mental, like, I'm trying to tell people the Giants have been so disrespected in all of the NFL media. I'm seeing people say that they have a chance to go 0-17. I see people putting them as the worst team in the NFC. They are not the worst team in the NFC. I have the Giants going 7-10. I think that Malik Neighbors is going to have a great year. I think the defense is going to be very strong. I mean, Brian Burns is a great addition. Dexter Lawrence is the best defensive tackle in the NFL now that Aaron Donald is retired. They have a good defense. I think Washington, I don't know why everybody's blazing Washington. It happens every year. They're not a good team. They're going 5-12. The Giants own the Commanders, and that's a fact. They're not better than the Giants. I have them at 5-12. So that's my spiel on this division. I'll kick it to you, Jackson. I'll let you talk because, you're a little more unbiased in a sense.
Yeah, I love the detailed analysis of the Giants season last year. Really interested to know what would have happened in this alternate universe of the Giants going 9-8. Similar to you, I got the Eagles winning this division 11-6, and then I have Dallas at 11-6, tying them. I've lived in Pennsylvania for long enough to know those teams are always linked. There's never really anything too separating them. I think that the Eagles are always a vibes team. They're good when the vibes are good and they're really bad when the vibes are bad. I think the vibes could get really bad for the Eagles this year. It seems like they're a press conference away from Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni fighting each other in the locker room. So I would watch out for that, but so do the Cowboys. The Cowboys are also a press conference away from utter implosion with, Jerry Jones and the salary cap. But I think both of those teams just have elite players on their teams that will win them a lot of games. And I think both teams go 11-6, but the Eagles take this division and Dallas gets in as a wild card. And I'm sure, I haven't even looked at the schedule, but I'm sure there's some late season game between the two where, the division's going to be on the line. And there's going to be some scenario where if they tie, we have some kind of crazy division scenario. I have the Giants going 6-11. I think, I mean, obviously I don't like Daniel Jones that much. I do like Malik Neighbors. I think he's a very good prospect. Questionable about how he's going to get the ball. I think that we've seen with first round receivers in the past few years that you really have to make sure they get the ball in new and interesting ways, because if you just make them run routes, it's not always the best way to go. I do agree with you, though, Nick, about the Giants defense. I think it has a lot of good players on it and there's a lot of potential. Dexter Lawrence being the best defensive tackle in the league is a bit of a hot take, in my opinion. We'll see how that goes. But I think the Giants are going to be in enough close games that they go 6-11 because of their defense. And then I have Washington going 5-12. I mean, I can answer your question, Nick, about why people glaze them. I mean, they have Jaden Daniels. The guy won the Heisman last year. I mean, he's going to be exciting to watch. I mean, it's much easier to pick for Jaden Daniels than Daniel Jones. I think that's the reason why they're getting glazed.
Yeah, I mean, you make a point, but also, you can't sit here and tell me that all the other rookie quarterbacks are getting the same treatment as Jaden Daniels.
They didn't win the Heisman.
Nobody's doing that to the Broncos. Nobody, all right, Caleb Williams is in his own category. But you get what I'm trying to say? Nobody's doing it for Drake May. Everybody just assumes that Jaden Daniels is going to be insane. He had a great college career. I'm sure he's a great guy and everything. And if he wasn't on the Commanders, I'd be rooting for him. But I just don't understand it really. But Jake, I'll kick it to you, and then we'll go to the NFC North, which I think is going to be one of the most entertaining divisions this year.
Well, as a diehard Eagles fan, I think my opinions are going to be a little bit biased. But as also a diehard Eagles fan who decided to fly to Tampa to watch a playoff game last year,
Oh,
I I was able to witness a implosion on of extreme accounts firsthand, and I can say that that was one of the least enjoyable games I've ever been to. And I think changing both coordinators is going to make a big difference for this Eagles team. I mean, obviously they've already found a way to win against a very good Packers team, so that was a very good game down in Brazil. Um, but I think the Eagles are going to be better this year than they were at the end of last year. So they're definitely going to find a way to win games again, especially after losing to a like 4-13 Cardinals team. It was not a very fun game to watch. Sky was there as well. Um, uh, so I have the Eagles as the 2 seed this year at 12-5. The Cowboys, they're going to find a way to make the playoffs because they always do. They're not a bad team. I think Dak Prescott is by far the most overrated quarterback in the NFL. People put him as like top of the NFC, and like he's just not all that. He's like not a bad quarterback by any means, but he's not elite like people make him out to be. And I think the Giants also aren't as bad as people make them out to be, but I don't think they're making playoffs. I think they're going to find ways to win games. I think their defense is going to be pretty strong this year. And I do really like Malik Neighbors. I think people were drafting him too high in fantasy, but I think he's going to be pretty good this year. And the Commanders also just aren't good.
yeah, that's
Adding aging Austin Eckler does not make a difference for that team. They're just not good.
yeah. I feel like Washington added all the unks of free agency. They got Austin Eckler, Bobby Wagner, like
Yeah,
washed.
yeah. Their pickups, like the
Bobby
Cowboys
Wagner
pickups, there was,
can still give you service, but he's
yeah,
not like prime Bobby
he's
Wagner.
not what he used to be. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're like free agent pickups as well as the Cowboys. Just like were not impressive at all. Like they literally did like probably the worst things they could have done in free agency and did not improve their team at all.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, let's move to the NFC North now. I personally think this is going to be the most fun division this year. I'll kick it to you first, Jackson. Give us your thoughts.
Yeah, interesting to hear Dak Prescott's the most overrated quarterback in the NFL. I'd love to see a poll on that. So, I'll be honest, I had to change the predictions before the broadcast after Friday night.
Yeah, I did too. I did too.
I did.
Waiting
I
to
did
see
a little
Jordan
bit.
Love's injury. Whether it was going to be a season long. He's only out for 4 to 6 weeks. I'm going to think it's probably more like 6 weeks though. Obviously want to be careful with your franchise guy and any kind of knee injury. So I have the Lions taking this division 11-6. Now, I don't think Detroit's going to be as good as some people are picking. I think that they had a lot of guys who had career years and a lot of guys who had careers and contract years. You're not going to get that twice in a row. I think they go 11-6. I had them, a game or so worse before Jordan Love's injury. I have the Packers at 10-7, which still, looking at it feels a little bit high with Love's injury, but I think they have enough. I think they have a good coach and enough of some good players. And I think knowing your quarterback's going to come back can like fix your mentality as a player, as a team. So I have them going 10-7 and still making the playoffs, which is going to make for some great storylines when Love comes back. I have the Bears 7-10. I think there are definitely some people glazing them a little bit too hard. I mean, I think Caleb Williams is a generational prospect, but at the end of the day, he's a rookie quarterback. And I can probably count on my hand how many rookie quarterbacks have led their team to the NFL, let alone the Chicago Bears. I mean, talk about cursed franchises. Yeah, so I have them at 7-10, partially because Love gets injured. And then Vikings 5-12. I'm sorry, Minnesota fans. Wait till basketball season to turn on the TV. Sam Darnold it's Sam Darnold. And I don't even know who they're running as their backup this year. Oh, wait, I remember now, but I can't remember his name. He's just like so mediocre. Like it's just not gonna be fun for them. They're 5-12.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, those were pretty reasonable takes, I would say. Jake, I'll kick it to you and I'll give you my thoughts for this division.
Yeah, I still think the Lions are a really good football team. They might not be as elite as they were last year, but I still think they're going to find a way to win games in this division. especially with the Vikings being, the Vikings this year. That's a really just terrible scenario. Would not want to be a Minnesota fan. Um, but I think the Lions are going to be good still at 12-5 this year. I have them as 3 seed in the NFC. And then the Packers, obviously, with Jordan Love being hurt, he's a very great quarterback. So he's going to bring that team down a little bit. I have them at 10-7, though. I still think they're going to do pretty well. I was surprised to hear that an MCL tear is only like 4 to 6 weeks. So I definitely agree with Jackson. It's probably going to be the upper end of that. Might take a little bit longer for him to come back. But I still think the Packers are a pretty good football team. So I have them at 10-7. And the Bears are one of those teams where I could see them either going like 5-12 or like 10-7. I have no idea. They can go anywhere in that range based on how Caleb Williams plays. I have them somewhere in the middle there at 7-10. I still outside of Caleb Williams and like a couple other players on that roster, there's not a whole lot that I expect them to be a great team, but there's still something definitely to watch, not just this year, but also years to come. And then, like I said before, the Vikings, it's a horrible scenario. It's just a cursed division, cursed position at this point. So there's not much they can do. I have them at 5-12 this year.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, regarding this division, I originally had Green Bay at 12-5. I originally was super high on Green Bay, super high on Jordan Love, but ultimately, he's gonna be injured for like, I mean, we don't officially know, but I would say like about a month and a half. So I have them, losing out on 2 wins because of that. I have them going 10-7 now. I kind of agree with you, Jackson. I think the Lions are due for a little bit of regression, but now because of this injury, I feel like this is going to be an easy division for them. I have the Lions at 11-6. I have the Packers at 10-7 now. Originally at 12-5. I like the Bears. I really do. Not like Glaze, but I have the Bears at 9-8. I think that Caleb Williams is going to be good. I don't think he's going to be amazing. I think he's going to have like the rookie season that Kyler Murray had, where it was good, but he still showed signs that he was a rookie. Another thing to note about the Bears is they didn't just get Caleb Williams. They got so much better in the last like 8 months, 7 months. Just this offseason, they got Romo Dunze and Keenan Allen to add on to DJ Moore. That is a stacked receiving group. They added Montez Sweat at the deadline last year. If you take a look at their team from before that trade and after, on defense, they were so good in the second half, and that single-handedly kept them in like a lot of games and won them games, even though Justin Fields was their quarterback. That defense is very good with Montez Sweat. Like, this is a good team. Like, not a great team, but a good team. And I have them going 9-8. I think they're gonna sneak into that last wild card position, which I think is wide open. You'll have probably the NFC East runner up in the 5th seed, or maybe the 6th seed, and then you have somebody in the NFC North, whether it's Detroit or Green Bay. But that 7th seed is wide open, in my opinion, and I think Chicago's going to take it. For the Vikings, I have them at 6-11. I don't think they're going to be horrible, like 5-12 or 4-13. They still have Justin Jefferson. Like, I think him alone will win them like 1 or 2 games. But I mean, especially with JJ McCarthy being out, I don't really see any promise on this team. Now, regarding the NFC South, which is the next division we're going to go to, I have Atlanta winning this division. Now, Atlanta is another cursed team. I think Kirk Cousins is a super underrated quarterback. I think that, he is coming off of a big injury and he's getting up there in age. He's around like 34, 35, I think. But he's still a great quarterback and he is so much better than Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ridder was so bad. Anyway, I have them going 9-8 and winning the division. Tampa Bay, I think, is due for a little bit of regression. I think they're still going to be good and competitive. I have them at 8-9, but how good Baker Mayfield played was, I don't think he's going to keep that. I think he's still going to be good. But I don't think he's going to play the same as he did last year. I have them at 8-9. New Orleans, I can't stand New Orleans. I don't like them at all. They're so boring to watch. they only are competitive for so long because of their defense. And it's not even like elite. They just somehow win games every year. I don't think it's going to happen this year. I have them at 7-10. I think Derek Carr is, reaching the end of his career. He was very underrated in his prime, but I think he's doesn't have much left. Carolina, I have it 5-12. I feel like the Panthers are going to improve. I feel like people are forgetting how talented Bryce Young is. He was the number one overall recruit coming out of high school in his class. He was the Heisman No, he didn't win the Heisman. He was the runner-up.
No, he won it.
He did. Oh, yeah, no, he did. I'm thinking of Tua. Tua was the runner-up. But anyway, he did win the Heisman Trophy. And he was a beast at Alabama. He was so good. He kept them in so many games. Yes, he's a little undersized, but people are forgetting that. Like, he had such a horrible environment around him last year. I think this year is going to be improved. Still stuff that he needs to work on, but I think he's going to improve. And that alone is going to take them to 5-12. If they kept Brian Burns, I would have said 6-11 or maybe 7-10, but they didn't. And he's on the Giants now, so I'm happy. But anyway, I'll kick it to you, Jake, and then Jackson will wrap up this division.
I have like most of us will, I assume, have the Falcons winning this division. I think they're without a doubt the best team. I think having Kirk Cousins is going to make a big difference for this team. He's miles better than Desmond Ridder. It's like not even close. It's not even a comparison. So I think having new coaching as well is going to make a big difference for the Falcons to really allow those weapons that they drafted in the past few years, like Kyle Pitts and the running back whose name I'm forgetting, to continue to develop and really actually like start to become weapons rather than just like sitting there not doing a whole lot. It's going to make a big difference just from the head coaching standpoint. And I think the Falcons are also going to be able to get a lot of wins just from the fact that the NFC South is so weak. So I think they're going to be able to beat these other three teams pretty handily in most games that they get into. They're probably going to like lose one or two random ones, but should have at least 4 free wins from the rest of their division. The Bucks are a team that I'm not impressed by. I'm at 7-10. They're not going to make the playoffs. The only team, I don't think there's even a chance that any team other than whoever wins this division makes the playoffs. If one of these teams ends up being a wild card team, like I would be completely shocked because there's just nothing impressive about these teams. I do think Bryce Young is very good, so I have the Panthers higher than the Saints, but they're still not a team that you're going to write home about and tell people like, "Oh, the Panthers are good this year," because they're just not. The Saints, I really like Taysom Hill. I think he's really funny. So it's like fun to root for him. But other than that, the Saints aren't very good. Derek Carr at this point in his career is not what he used to be, and even what he used to be wasn't elite. So there's not a whole lot to like about that roster either. So that's what I think about the NFC South.
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty much in agreement for a lot of these. Like, we haven't disagreed that much this entire podcast, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, Jackson, I'll kick it to you, and then we'll do the last division, and then we'll go through the playoffs.
Yeah, so similar vibes to you guys. I have the Falcons winning this division. Now, one of my like bolder takes would just be the Falcons are just like a really good football team and they win like 12 games this year. I remember back to when Kirk Cousins and the Vikings 2 or 3 years ago, when the Vikings were just a really solid team, right? It was like young Justin Jefferson, Kirk Cousins. They had Dalvin Cook when he was still like moving around like a normal human being. Harrison Smith was there. I mean, I think like and in that environment, they were a really good regular season team. And I think Kirk Cousins is a very good regular season player. So I could see the Falcons with all their talent and all their weapons, and you put a guy like Kirk Cousins there who's really good at like using his weapons correctly. I could see them winning 12 games, but I don't think they will. I have them at 9-8. I forget who mentioned it, but yeah, Kirk Cousins is coming off a big injury. And I don't know the last time he came off a big injury was, but when you're that old, that does mentally change some things. But if their weapons are used properly, they could win a lot more games. I have the Saints and the Bucks both at 7-10. I agree with you, Nick. I think the Bucks will take a step back. Baker Mayfield's never put 2 seasons in a row together. It's always been up and down, up and down. It's kind of funny that Derek Carr and Kirk Cousins are in the same division now because I think they're just both the like perfect idea of like underrated in their primes, but probably a little bit past that point. And they put up like huge numbers in their career, and I think like at the end we're gonna be like, wow, Kirk Cousins threw that many passing yards. Like, you being for real? But I think, yeah, Saints and Bucks are going to be two rather unfun teams to watch, I think. I have the Panthers, excuse me, going 6-11. Yeah, I like Bryce Young a lot. I think it would be really, really exciting if he just like played out of his mind this year and like the Panthers were like a wild card contender, but that won't happen. But in terms of like what would make this division fun, it would be Bryce Young is just like an elite quarterback. So yeah, those are my thoughts on what's probably the worst division in NFL this year.
Yeah, I mean, we're all pretty much in agreement on this division. Moving to the NFC West. So I say we just speed through this. I mean, oh wow, wait, actually, Jake, you
Yeah.
go first. I see
Yeah,
a
I have
take,
some hot
which
takes,
I
dude.
actually don't disagree with that much. I'll let you go first, and then Jackson and I will go quickly because we're basically the same.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you have to mention that the Niners are just a really good football team. Their defense is outstanding. They have a lot of weapons in offense. CMC is just absolutely ridiculous. I don't really know what's going on with Brandon Ayuk. I don't know if he's going to be on the roster in the next couple weeks.
He resigned.
He did? Okay.
Yeah,
I missed that then.
yeah.
So that is definitely happening. Um, but my hot take in this division is I think the Cardinals are going to make the playoffs. I really like Kyler Murray. I think he's a great quarterback and a really good football player. And I think adding Marvin Harrison to his arsenal is going to be very big. And I think this team could make the playoffs. They're my sleeper for this year. I really think they're going to, improve drastically from last year. I have them just over 500 at 9-8, taking that last wild card spot. So that's my hot take for the NFC West. And then the Rams, I also don't impress me. They're 7-10. And the Seahawks, I think, are probably the worst team in this division. They're a team that doesn't have a whole lot that I like. Just looking at the whole roster top down, I don't have a whole lot above anyone really. I have them 5-12 this year, so that's my hot take for this podcast today.
Yeah, I mean, Jackson, I'll let you go first. I'll address the Cardinals thing later. But yeah, Jackson, you can just run through yours first, and then I'll basically say mine, which are almost identical.
Yeah, so I'll just, Jake said everything I wanted to say about the Niners. Yeah, they win this division 13-4. They're just, might be the best team in the NFL for being real. I have the Rams going 9-8 and making the playoffs. I'm a sucker for good quarterback, good head coach duos, and I think Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay are a great quarterback head coach duo. Even without Aaron Donald, I got them 9-8. I got the Seahawks 9-8 as well, just missing out. I was looking at Seattle's schedule earlier, and it's quite favorable to them. And I think that while Geno Smith is not an amazing quarterback, he more often than not gets the job done. And I think they have enough receiving talent. And also, I'm a big Mike McDonald fan. Seahawks have some interesting defensive players. I have them 9-8. I have the Cardinals 5-12. They remind me a lot of the Bears, but I think the Bears are better. And that, yes, they have good quarterback this year who I like. Yes, they improved the receiving cores. What didn't they do? They didn't address the problem that's been hurting them for the past like 5 years, that their offensive line sucks. And so I think they go 5-12. Not to say that Kyler Murray isn't a good quarterback, but I just think that's what's going to happen. Not enough wins to go around.
Yeah. I agree with the 49ers. I have them at 12-5. I have them winning the division easily again. The Seahawks, kind of the same. They kind of have an easier schedule, but kind of just like a middling team that is going to be around 500. I have them at 9-8, but I have them missing the playoffs. The Rams, I am not high on. Like, if you think about this, people are not talking about the loss of Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald is, in my opinion, outside of Lawrence Taylor, the greatest defensive player of all time. He was so good. He single-handedly was like getting triple teamed every time and getting through. Like, people don't understand how big of a loss Aaron Donald is. Their defense is going to plummet. That alone, I think, is going to take them out of playoff contention. I think Stafford is still going to do his thing. Puka Nacua is still going to do his thing. Cooper Kupp, Kyron Williams. They have a good offense, but I think their defense is going to kill them, and I think they're going to go 8-9. Regarding the Cardinals, they're kind of like the Titans, where I'm predicting them to go 6-11. But I could definitely see them doing better. Kyler Murray is one of the most overhated quarterbacks ever. This dude goes on the field and he performs. Now, is he like the superstar that he was expected to be? Of course not. And in a sense, that can be disappointing. But at his best, he's top 10. And that's facts. It's facts. At his best, he's a top 10 quarterback. I think, having the full offseason after his ACL, like he came back from the ACL and he played pretty well. I think having this offseason to really get like his body right, I think he's going to have a good year. But the roster is, the roster alone is just making me, not predict them to go far. Offensive line is not that good. Marvin Harrison Jr., I think he's going to have a great rookie season. He's going to be a really good player. I think the Cardinals, if they can make some good offseason moves, are a sneaky good team, as there's a really loud car outside. I don't know if you guys can hear that. But I think they're a team to watch out for next year. But yeah, I don't hate that pick, Jake. I really don't. Yeah, so we're gonna move to the NFL playoffs now. So we're gonna not go through the whole bracket just to save time. We're gonna say who we think are gonna win. Who do we think is gonna win the AFC Conference Championship game? Who do you think is gonna win the NFC Conference Championship game? And then who do you think is gonna win the Super Bowl?
All
So
right.
yeah,
Yeah,
Jackson, you go first. Sorry, I
I'll
didn't.
start it off. I'm going to be honest. I have a wacky pick in the NFC, and I'll explain it when I get there. So in the AFC, I picked this last year. It didn't come true, but I have to pick it again just for pure delusion. Ravens over Chiefs in a revenge game. I don't care how many tries it takes us. We beat them once already. We'll beat them again in the conference championship game. Listen, I think Lamar and Mahomes are the best two quarterbacks in the NFL. I think the cream rises to the top. I think as long as neither of those two gets injured, we see them in the conference championship again. I think if you look at the game that just happened in the game last year, it's a game of inches, and the Chiefs came out on top the last two times. We'll see which way the inches go this time. And the NFC, right? This is my wacky pick. I have the Niners over the Rams. Now, let me explain. I already explained I'm a sucker for good quarterback, good head coach duos, especially in the playoffs. The Rams were like a couple points away from beating the Lions last year in the playoffs. And then the Lions go on and make the NFC Championship game. Could have easily been the Rams. Nick, I totally agree with you saying losing Aaron Donald is bigger than people think. But I think the Rams were prepared for that. But really the reason I have them losing to the Niners in the NFC Championship game is I look at the teams in the NFC, and I look at the teams that are probably going to make the playoffs, or at least for me. I don't feel confident in Philadelphia or Dallas to make it to the championship game. Maybe Philadelphia, but they have too many unknown variables. I don't feel comfortable with the Packers after losing Jordan Love. I don't feel comfortable with the Lions because they're the Detroit Lions. And I don't care they made the conference championship game last year. I'm not picking them to make it that far again. I'm not comfortable in any team from the NFC South. So there we go. Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, arguably the two best coaches in the NFL going at it. And I have Niners coming out on top, going to the Super Bowl. And listen, are the Niners a better football team than the Ravens? Yeah, they are. But if the Ravens actually beat Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, they're not losing to anybody else. Just like last year, when the Chiefs beat the Ravens and the Bills, everyone was like, they're winning the Super Bowl. We know it. So yeah, book it. Baltimore Ravens are your 2025 Super Bowl champions.
I don't know.
Okay.
Look, like I admire your confidence in your team. Like I truly do. I have, watching the Giants after the first touchdown to give up, I'm like, all right, we suck. But I admire confidence, and it's not like a crazy pick. The Ravens were a couple plays away from the Super Bowl last year. It's not like a crazy pick. Yeah, Jake, I'll let you go next, and then I'll end off the podcast.
My predictions aren't that different from Jackson. I have the Ravens beating the Texans in the AFC Championship game. Isaiah Likely, after the game with the Chiefs on Thursday night, had some very strong words about his playoff predictions. And honestly, that just really goes to say, like, the mentality in that locker room. They want to win. They are really hungry. So I think the Ravens are going to be a team that comes out in the playoffs and they actually start to prove their haters wrong, show the doubters that there's reasons that they're in the playoffs to begin with and that they are a very good football team. So I have the Ravens making the Super Bowl over the Texans in the AFC. And then for the NFC, I have the Lions getting revenge over the Niners in the NFC because I think the NFC Championship game last year was a game that the Lions very easily could have won. It didn't go, it was a very close game. I think it was like 30, like 4-30 or something like that. It was really close. And I think the Lions this year, if they face the Niners again, they're going to be more prepared and ready to beat this team as they're starting to develop more as, with their coaching and their receivers and all around the field. So I think the Lions are going to do pretty well. And at this point, in a Ravens Lions Super Bowl, it's going to feed families. It's going to be fantastic. There's just there's a lot to say about the Lions, but I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl. I think the Ravens are going to beat them pretty easily, just like Jackson. I think the Ravens are going to be your Super Bowl champions for this year.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, like Ravens and Lions are not crazy picks to win conferences. For me, for the AFC. Now, earlier I said I was super high on the Texans, and I am still super high on the Texans. I have Houston and Kansas City in the AFC Championship game. The way my bracket works out, it has the Chiefs as the 4 seed and Houston as the 2 seed. I have Houston playing Buffalo in the divisional and Kansas City playing Cincinnati in the divisional. So I have the conference championship game as Kansas City at Houston. Now, what I said about experience before is ultimately what is making me that, and all the devil's luck that the Chiefs have had in the past couple of years is making me pick Houston to win this game. CJ Stroud is an elite quarterback already. Mahomes is an elite quarterback, yes. But if you look at these two teams, the Chiefs have won the last 2 championships, right? They're due for a loss. The game is going to be on the road for them. It's going to be in Houston. I like Houston in this game. I already have Kansas City winning another road game before this at Cincinnati. Everybody's going to be saying, oh, wow, here we go again. More road wins. They're going to just go to the Super Bowl and win. I think the Texans win this game. I mean, the additions of Stephon Diggs and Joe Mixon and Danielle Hunter, these are guys that have a ton of playoff experience. Now, for the NFC, I have the 49ers. Wow, what a shock. I mean, I can't not pick the 49ers. I have the 49ers defeating the Green Bay Packers in the NFC Championship game. I still have Green Bay in the conference championship game. I think that, yes, Jordan Love is injured and it might hurt their seeding, but I think that Green Bay is going to be another one of those teams like last year where they go into the playoffs red hot. I think they're going to beat the Eagles in the divisional. I'm just going to say it. Like, look, that game last night was a great game. Those two teams looked very even. I think that game could have gone Green Bay's way. Of course it didn't, and Philly won. Not saying anything about it. I'm just saying that Green Bay can 100% beat the Eagles, and I think that they will. And then there are some trends with the Packers in the playoffs, always finding a way to lose to the 49ers, whether it was last year, whether it was 2019, whether it was back when back in the Aaron Rodgers era, like that time period. I don't know. I feel like they always find a way to lose to the 49ers. And I truly think this is the 49ers' last chance with this core to win a Super Bowl. They got Ayuk re-signed, but they're going to have to pay Purdy soon. And I don't know how they're going to do it. Like, they're going to have to get rid of somebody. I think that the 49ers know that this is kind of their last dance in a sense. And I think they're going to take care of business and go to the Super Bowl where they beat the Texans. If the 49ers can't win the Super Bowl this year, they're never going to with this core. I think that this is their year. I think the Chiefs are, they've kind of been their kryptonite, and I think that they're due for a loss. I think that if they get into a Super Bowl with a team, literally anybody but the Chiefs, if they go to the Super Bowl against the Chiefs again, oh my God. If they play anybody except the Chiefs, I think that they're going to win. Look, Brock Purdy isn't an elite quarterback, but he makes all the plays you need. Like you saw that in the Super Bowl. He didn't make any plays that single-handedly won them the game, but he didn't do anything that kept them out of the game. I have the 49ers beating the Texans. I think the Texans are just a little shy of being like a true Super Bowl contender. So, yeah, ultimately, that's my pick. I have the 49ers beating the Texans in the Super Bowl. So, yeah, that's going to conclude this podcast. Jackson, Jake, thank you guys for participating, of course. So yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Be on the lookout. It'll probably be MLB postseason predictions because that's coming up soon. So yeah, take care, everyone.